Nearly everything in Clair Obscur Expedition 33 has layers of meaning that may take a while to recognize, and while some subtle details reveal messages of tragedy, others reveal something wholesome. The Gestrals, Grandis, Esquie, and even Osquio serve more than just bringing in the good vibes. If we look closer, they depict messages and themes that many of us can relate to. And in the context of the story, they even reveal more details about Verso's character and his past. We know that Verso created the canvas world as a child and painted several creatures as companions to have adventures with when he was younger. They each represent something different about his past, and when put together, they reveal an overarching message that Verso and even we need to hear during hard times in life. To see the bigger picture, we have to look at his creations, and what better way to start off than exploring the most goofiest one of them all, which are the Gestrals. People love these little guys. They are funny creatures that just say and do the most random things, like one minute they are chill and the next they do something outlandish, and their behavior makes sense because Verso essentially created them to be fun and childish. Of course, we know this much, and it's reasonable to say that their life represents this carefree sense of wonder and excitement to just live in the moment like a child would, but I believe that this is only one part of their true meaning. Just as understanding how their life is important, their death also holds significant meaning as well. I say death, but in reality, Gestrals don't truly die. If they suffer enormous amounts of damage, they break and are unconscious until they are later reborn by the Gestral sacred river. And it's this aspect of being reborn that represents something important. Just like a child can't imagine losing their friends, Verso couldn't imagine losing the Gestrals, especially Monoko, whose creation was inspired by Verso's childhood dog, which was his best friend. This aspect about the Gestrals represents how Verso views his ideal childhood, a notion that having a good time with the people, hobbies, and things that make you happy should be a never-ending experience. It's something that many of us can relate to, as you may have had a moment or experience in your past that you wish would have lasted longer, something that you wish to have the chance to experience again. It's this underlying feeling of nostalgia that Gestrals invoke not just from Verso but from us as well. They are symbols of the once simple, carefree, and wonderful memories of the past, and the Gestrals being reborn represents the desire to keep these experiences alive, whether it's by taking a walk down memory lane or experiencing them again. And of course, one may recall a parental figure, guardian, or adult watching over them during these past experiences, and in this case, I believe Golgra symbolizes this. It would make sense that Golgra could be inspired by Aline or even Clea, considering that Verso grew up with powerful and talented women that taught and watched over him, which is similar to how Golgra teaches and cares for the other Gestrals. However, nothing truly lasts forever. Just as one may forget parts of our nostalgic past or recreate these experiences only to find that they are no longer the same, the Gestrals also lose pieces of their memory and personality each time they are resurrected. But despite this, Verso is still able to enjoy his time with the Gestrals both as a child and as an adult. He even chooses to live among them before meeting Expedition 33. This relationship with the Gestrals can be seen as the desire to preserve the simpler and happy moments of the past, despite the many challenges and tragedies that are faced in the present. In Expedition 33, the names of the different creations mean something, but in the case of the Gestrals, I couldn't find any concrete translations or inspirations about their name, and I'm curious if anyone has any theories or found some info about it. To me, Gestrals sound like it could be inspired from the word jester, since Gestrals are funny, and just like the French, I too find the English to be quite hilarious and fun to be around. Thank you, Ben Starr. However, unlike the Gestrals, the names of Verso's other creations like the Grandis actually mean something when translated. The Grandis take inspiration from the French word grandi, which refers to a person who's a grown-up or an adult, which makes sense as childhood Verso painted them to be the canvas world's representation of an adult. Even though we hardly see them, what's noticeable about the Grandis is their peaceful and wise nature. This calm, diplomatic, and sometimes boring nature of the Grandis gives us an inside view of how Verso viewed adults in general during his childhood. Instead of being hostile or manipulative when there are disputes among each other, the Grandis tried to solve their issues through poetic debates. This could be inspired by how he saw his parents interact with other adults, especially with other painters on the Painters Council, where Aline, with Renoir's help, led the organization through its many challenges. Essentially, the Grandis are Verso's representation of how adults behave and how they should interact with others, solving their disputes calmly in order to preserve the peace that's around them. And yeah, sure, it's a bit bland, but because of this, the Grandis are able to create a calm environment, and this is partly why Verso lived on their mountain for a while. As for their appearance, the Grandis all have a glorious mustache which child Verso could have associated adults with. Maybe he viewed having facial hair like a mustache was tied to being wise and calm, or perhaps Renoir had a mustache at one point during Verso's childhood. Either way, the Grandis at least have a more straightforward reference compared to everyone's favorite emotionally supportive character, Esquie, who is built like a leather canteen filled with wine. Esquie's appearance is just as random as a child creating their first imaginary character, but to Verso, Esquie literally represents this idea. Esquie's name is inspired by the French word esquisse, which translates to first sketch or first draft. This supports the idea that Esquie is the first creation brought to life in Verso's childhood canvas even before the Gestrals and Grandis even existed, which explains why he is the most powerful creation painted by Verso. It's no wonder that Verso looks up to Esquie not only as a superhero figure but also as a friend. But what's important about Esquie is not just his strength but also how he supports Verso. Esquie doesn't solve all of Verso's problems even if he has the ability to do so. Rather than constantly saving the day and coddling Verso, Esquie provides a sympathetic and grounded perspective on different situations. It's this advice that helps Verso overcome different emotional situations, which allowed him to grow both as a child but also as an adult. He allows Verso to make mistakes, but Esquie is also there to offer wisdom that causes Verso to be self-reflective, which also puts him at ease. Sometimes his wisdom may not make sense at first, and other times it is more direct, but no matter how it's presented, Esquie's words bring out the best in people. He represents child Verso's ideal role model, someone strong yet caring, who doesn't coddle him but instead gives Verso the courage and wisdom to become the best person he could be. It resembles many of our childhood role models and heroes that we look up to, and Verso was even able to experience the childhood fantasy of going on adventures with his idol. Together, they journeyed through many different places in the canvas world and even created their own hidden paradise. For Verso, Esquie was the ultimate hero that he can proudly call his friend. But with every great hero, there is also an evil villain. Enter the most villainous of all villains, Osquio, ruler of all the trains and ultimate cake eater of the universe. Osquio's appearance resembles that of an evil version of Esquie, and both are relatively equal in power, which from a child's perspective, this all makes sense. Osquio's vain personality and slightly menacing appearance are the opposite of Esquie's characteristics, but what makes Osquio interesting is not what he is, but rather what he could have been. A creative person like Child Verso could have easily drawn Osquio to be this dark and sinister eldritch looking creature like Lampmaster. The paintings from his older family members could have inspired Verso to create an abomination like this as the ultimate villain, however he doesn't do this. After exploring around Verso's draft and looking at the various Gestral and Grandis creations, the reasoning becomes clear. Despite the challenges of living in a strict household and a family exposed to danger, Verso had a relatively safe and happy childhood. As far as we know, there wasn't a dark childhood event that could have influenced him to create a villain out of trauma or hatred. Verso's only fear was the doubt of achieving his dreams of becoming a great musician, and this is why Osquio is created to be this goofy, lighthearted villain that reflects Verso's childlike fear. And to overcome this fear and defeat Osquio, Verso will have to team up with his hero and friend Esquie, and together they take down their greatest nemesis. After defeating Osquio, Verso's character, his childhood past, and the meaning of his creations become clear as day. Even though Verso's final years of life was filled with many struggles which ultimately led to his passing, it was his childhood dreams and creations that allowed him to be his authentic self until the very end. And like many of us, Verso's childhood meant so much to him. It was filled with love from his family and countless adventures with his painted creations, which became his closest friends. We can see how much he truly valued his childhood with the look of fulfillment that Verso gave to his younger self during the final moments of the DLC story. And honestly, Verso's enjoyment of spending time with his childhood creations while dealing with the many tragedies and hard realities as an adult reminds us that it's okay to take a break from the chaos that life may bring, to find the time to have a bit of fun or a place to just relax and be yourself. And especially in today's uncertain world, what better way to do this than by revisiting the many things in the past that made you happy? With Expedition 33's story being serious and dark, it feels good to know that there are characters that lighten the mood, and it was nice to explore their subtle meanings. And if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more deep dives into other games, consider subscribing for upcoming videos, and until then, thanks for watching and I hope to see you in the next one.